I want to go back and talk a little bit about public education, K through 12. We were talking earlier about so somebody took us to task, from what I understand, and you don't want to do that without expecting us to. I mean, we'll respond. We're like Trump. We're the counterpuncher. We're not going to take it on the chin without throwing a haymaker ourselves. But somebody basically implied and insinuated that I didn't know what I was talking about. Well, on many subjects, I don't. And I opine anyway. On this particular subject, I had an opinion that was different than Kevin. Kevin was the guy who called earlier and said, that I had my facts wrong. Indeed, class size is a determinant in academic achievement, educational outcomes. And I just argued against that being the so. It's almost like saying if you go to college and get a degree, you'll earn $1 million more than somebody who didn't go to college and didn't get a degree. You're giving too much credit to something that doesn't deserve that much. In other words, you're saying, so the only reason I'm making $1 million more than my companion here who didn't go to college is because of that college degree. No, that's not the case. I would argue that somebody smart, persistent, and willing to finish college is probably going to outperform the average anyway. Now, I don't doubt that some of that increase in compensation isn't related to college, but when you say that, well, the improvements in Lexington County School District or the improvement in York County School District are because they have 4 fewer students per classroom and the SAT scores improve and the graduation rate improves. And that's why we need smaller class sizes. To me, that's a hollow argument. That's an argument that lacks detail. Do I believe that kids would be better educated if every classroom had 10 students in it and every teacher made $150,000 a year? Yes. I probably would argue from an overall perspective, you're getting smaller classrooms and better teachers. Yeah, academics or academic achievement will probably improve. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. What I'm arguing is these things that the Educrats are continually in search of. And in essence, that's more money. And I think I've defined or explained from my perspective what I consider to be the difference in an educator and an educrat. An educator is someone who sincerely cares about the academic and educational well-being of that kid. There are 1 million of you. You have great passion and inspiration in your craft and profession, and you should be compensated handsomely. You should absolutely make real good money. But I believe, once again, I don't have any analysis to show this other than the number of educators has increased by about 10% in relation to the students. The number of administrators has increased about 130%. So I believe, not for the Wall Street Journal, not for the New York Times, not for the Brookings Institute or the Cato Institute or the American Enterprise. I believe that a lot of people have made their way onto the payrolls of K through 12 education who we really don't need. And it's really hard to find after 10 or 12 or 15 years why they're so essential to the educating of our young people. And I believe that if we carved out some of that fat, there'd be enough money to have smaller classrooms. There'd be enough money to pay educators, teachers, real good teachers, the compensation they deserve. And that's what I call an educrat. And you asked me the official definition of an educrat. I don't really have one. To me, the official definition of an educrat is somebody who believes that hanging on to their job and making sure they get a raise and making sure they get retirement and making sure they get health care is more important than whether or not we're improving education in South Carolina, America, and across the world or around the world. That's what an educrat is to me. Once again, that's not a scientific definition. But an educator cares. An educator goes to Walmart at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night to buy a kid in his class or her class a jacket because they noticed last week when it was real cold, the kid didn't have a jacket. That's an educator. That's a teacher. That's somebody who is caring of their profession. And there are a bunch of those. And I don't believe the ones that care and are committed to that profession make enough money. I think they should make more. But they can't make more because the educrats gobble up all the excess. And the educrats are the one that when you ask, what do you really do? What is your job? Well, a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of the other. And I just think they're non-essential. Remember we had the shutdown of the government, non-essential employees, and we went 2 or 3 or 4 weeks with the non-essential employees not working, and nobody really knew the non-essential workers weren't working anymore. What do? Well, I checked the light bulbs at the national parks. How many bulbs had you had to change in the last 10 years of you doing your job at the national park? Oh, I don't change the bulbs. I just check them. We've got a crew that changes them. That would be my definition of an educrat. And when we started down the road of class size, here's where we ended up. We ended up in somebody arguing that there was a clear, definite correlation between class size and academic achievement, and I challenge that. I don't believe that. Do I believe that we had smaller classes, that education may improve incrementally? Probably. But once again, here we go with Bernie Sanders. Where do we get the money? Where does the money come from? How much more money are we going to extract from the private sector to fund these wonderful ideas that education has in pursuit of academic achievement? So I went back and looked at some of the best educational systems in the world. Singapore has a great educational system. When you look at some of the comparisons between America and Singapore, they outperform us substantially on math, science, reading, literature. I mean, their students excel. You know how many students are in a classroom in Singapore? 35.5. It's interesting here. One of the fun facts of Singapore education, Singapore schools are all taught in English as well as their native tongue. That means that Singapore has one of the highest fluency rates of English and Southeast Asia. Guess who else has a pretty dadgum good public school system? Japan. Guess how many students per class? 32.5. Fun fact about Japanese schools. Japanese students eat all their lunch together in their classrooms. They have no cafeterias, and their classmates take turns in serving them. That's kind of a nuance of public education in Japan. Spain has about 25.4 students per class. America has about 26 students per class. So we're about in the same place that Spain is, that Great Britain is, but we're far fewer students than 3 good school districts, one being Japan, one being Singapore, and one being China. Now, China can't help but have big schoolrooms because there's 1.4 billion of them. I mean, there's just so many. China public schools have 48.8 students per class. China, on the world stage, outperforms American schools in proficiencies of reading, math, and science. The Chinese students perform better than American students do, and China has 48.8 students per classroom. So are we dumb? Are the Asians smarter than we are? Are the Singapores smarter than we are? Are the Spaniards smarter than we are? Or are we misappropriating funds? Do we have a public education system in drastic need for reform? That's what I suggest. And the people that oppose that are not the educators. The people that oppose that are not the parents. The people that oppose that are probably not the school boards. The people that oppose that are these entrenched educrats who have figured out a way. We talk about feeding at the trough of government. They have figured out a way to feed at the trough of K through 12 public education, and we really don't know what they're doing. That's the problem with education in America today. There are too many people on the payroll that their primary objective is to not make education better and our young people more educated, more proficient, and on a standard with places around the world. That's just interesting information because we were talking exclusively about class size. China outperforms America in educational attainment. China has 48.8 kids per class. Singapore outperforms America, 35.5 kids per class. Japan outperforms America, 32.5 kids per class. Spain outperforms America substantially, about the same size classes, 25 to 26. Spain has 25. America has roughly 26. So when you just say things that you get from a National Teachers Association seminar or summit that class size is the problem, the world looks at it in a very different way. And these are reports that have been, once again, not funded by some activist organization that wants to give you the outcomes you desire. These are funded by reputable journalistic agencies who took a long, hard look at American education in relation to what other places around the world are doing. And we ain't doing so well, if you want to be honest with ourselves. Let's take a break. We'll go to the phone as soon as we get back. 843-661-0937 is our number. Good morning, PD Live 95.